That's good. I suddenly have a major migraine. I know. It's not very helpful, is it? Oh. It's just, I don't know if it feels good or if it feels horrible. It's kind of like it's sending shockwaves to my whole brain. So what are you here for again? I know, I'm teasing. Oh, it's literally pounding my head. I would take a gummy, but I got stuff to do after this. Gotta give what the people want, you know? I do my best. Yeah. Alright. Time for part 2, right? Of magic bites. I'm like really dehydrated too. Maybe it's because I'm still like recovering from being sick. Oh, that fell pretty quick. You can tell all the way over there? Yeah, I have nylons on. Okay. I think this is where we paused last time, but this is where we're going to start. At some point, he must have been very strong, but now his muscle was sheathed in what my father had called hard fat. He was still a large, strong man, and he could probably move fast if he needed to, despite the unsightly bulge around his middle. He wore jeans and a navy blue shirt with a fringe. I did not know they even made those anymore. The clothes in which the West was won, or sung into submission, were meant for whiplashed, lean men. They made the protector look like Gene Autry, gone on a long Twinkie binge. The knight looked at me. He had a wide face with a massive square jaw and probing blue eyes under heavy eyebrows. His nose was misshapen from being broken too many times. The hat hid the hair, or most likely the absence of it. But I was willing to bet that what was left was the growth on his head had to be gray and short. The protector motioned me to one of the smaller red chairs set before the desk. I sat, getting a look into the cardboard box on his desk. It contained a half-eaten jelly donut. The knight resumed listening to the phone conversation, so I looked around his office. A large bookcase, also of a dark cherry wood, stood at the opposite wall. Above it, I saw a large wooden map of Texas decorated with strips of barbed wire. Golden script etched under each piece announced the name of the manufacturer and the year. The protector finished his conversation by hanging up the phone without saying a word. "You've got some paper to show me. Now's the time." I handed him my Merc ID and half a dozen recommendations. He flipped through them. "Water and sewer, huh?" "Yes." "Gotta be tough or dumb to go down into those sewers these days. So which one are you?" "I'm not dumb, but if I tell you I'm tough, you'll peg me for a bravo. So I'm gonna smile cryptically." I gave him my best cryptic smile. He did not fall down to his feet, kissed my shoes, and promised me the world. I must be getting rusty. The protector squinted at the signature. "Mike Tells. I've worked with him before. You do regular work for him?" "More or less." He had a problem with large pieces of equipment being dragged away. Someone told him he had a baby American. "They're marine," he said. "They die in fresh water." An overweight slob who eats powdered jelly donuts, wears shirts with fringe, and identifies an obscure magical creature without a momentary pause. Night protector, camouflage expert extraordinaire. "You got to the bottom of Mike's problem?" "Yes." "Yes, he had an impala worm," I said. If he was impressed, he did not show it. You kill it? Very funny. No, I just made it feel unwelcome. The memory stabbed me, and for a moment I stumbled again through a dim tunnel flooded with liquid excrement and filth that rose to my hips. My left leg burned with icy pain, and I struggled on, half dragging it, while behind me the enormous pallid body of the worm spilled its life blood into the sludge. The slick green blood swirled on the surface, each of its cells a tiny living organism, consumed by a single purpose: to reunite. No matter how many times or how many miles apart this creature appeared, it was always the same Impala worm. There was only one, and it regenerated endlessly. The protector put all my papers on his desk. So what do you want? I'm investigating the murder of Greg Feldman. On whose authority? My own. I see. He leaned back. Why? For special reasons. For personal reasons. Did you know him personally? He delivered the question in a perfectly neutral tone, but the underlying meaning was all too clear. I felt happy to disappoint him. Yes, he is a friend of my father. I see, he said again. Your father wouldn't be available for a statement? He's dead. I'm sorry. Don't be. You didn't know him. Do you have anything that might support your relationship with Greg Feldman? I could easily provide him with collaboration if he was to look me up in his files. He would find that Greg had sponsored my application to the order, but I did not want to go into that direction. Greg Feldman was 39 years old. He was an intensely private man and disliked being photographed. I handed him a small rectangle of the photograph. This is a picture of me and him on the day of my high school graduation. There's an identical picture in his apartment. It's located in his library on the third shelf of the central bookcase. I've seen it, the protector said. How bloody nice. Can I have that back, please? He returned the photo. Are you aware that you're named as a beneficiary in Greg Feldman's will? No. I would have welcomed a moment to deal with my guilt and gratitude, but the Night Protector plowed on. He bequeathed his financial assets to the Order and the Academy. He was watching me for a reaction. Did he think I cared about Greg's money? Everything else, the library, the weapons, the objects of power, is yours. I said nothing. I've checked on you with the guild, he said. The blue eyes fixed me in place. I've heard you're able, but hurting for money. The Order's prepared to make you a generous offer for the items in question. You'll find the sum to be more than adequate. It was an insult, and we both knew it. I thought of telling him that it wasn't for Oklahoma cowboys and Mexican whores having a bit of fun. There would have been no Texans, but that would be counterproductive. One didn't call a Night Protector a whoreson in his own office. No, thank you, I said with a pleasant smile. Are you sure? His eyes took my measure. You look like you'd use some money. The Order will give you more than you'd get auctioning it off. My advice? Take the money. Buy yourself a decent pair of shoes. I glanced at my beat-up sneakers. I liked my shoes. I could bleach them. It took the blood right out. Do you think I should get some like yours? I asked, looking at his boots. Who knows? I might throw a cowboy shirt with a fringe in them. Maybe even a girdle. Something stirred in his eyes. You got a mouth on you. Who? Me? Talk's cheap. What can you really do? Then Ice proceeded with caution. I leaned back. What can I really do, sir? I won't do anything to threaten or antagonize the Night Protector in his own office, no matter how much he insults me. That'd be stupid and highly hazardous to my health. I came here in search of information. I just want to know what Greg Feldman was working on when he died. For a moment, we sat there looking at each other. The Night Protector sucked the air into his nose with an audible whoosh and said, You know anything about investigative work? Sure. Annoy the people involved until a guilty party tries to make you go away. He grimaced. You know that Order is investigating this matter? In other words, run along, little lady, and let people who are more competent handle it. Greg Feldman was my only family, I said. I'll find out who or what killed him. And then what? I'll burn that bridge when I cross it. He laced his fingers of his hands in a single fist. Anything able to take out the night diviner is packing some power. Not for long. He thought about that for a while. So, happens I could use you, he said. That was unexpected. Why the hell would you want me? He gave me what he must have considered his cryptic smile. It reminded me of a grizzly awakened in midwinter. I have my reasons. Here's what I'll do for you. You get a mutual aid sticker on your ID, which should open you some doors. You get to use Greg's office. You get to look at the open file and police report. Open file meant I would get the case as it came to Greg. Bare facts and no or little findings. I'd have to retrace Greg's steps. It was bloody more than I expected. Thank you, I said. The file doesn't leave the building. No copies, no quotes. You'll make a complete report to me and only to me. I'm bound by the Guild's Disclosure of Information Act. He waved it aside. It's taken care of. Since when? This Knight's Protector is going far out of his way to help a worthless merc. Why? People who did me favors made me nervous. On the other hand, it was bad manners to look a gift horse in the mouth, even if you're getting it from an overweight cracker in a fringe shirt. Officially, you have no status with me. Screw up, and you're persona non grata. Understood. We're done. Outside, the receptionist waved me over and asked me for my ID. I gave it to her and watched as she affixed a small metallic mutual aid sticker to it, an official stamp of the Order's interest in my humble work. Some doors would open to me, and more would slam in my face. Oh well. Don't mind Ted, the receptionist said, returning my ID. He's harsh sometimes. My name's Maxine. My name's Kate. Would you point me out the late night diviner's office to me? I'd be glad to. The last one on the right. Thank you. She smiled and went back to her work, peachy keen. I reached Greg's office and stood in the doorway. It didn't look right. A square window spilled daylight onto the floor, a narrow desk and two old chairs. To the left, a deep bookshelf ran the length of the hall, threatening to collapse under the weight of meticulously arranged volumes. 4 metal file cabinets as tall as me towered at the opposite wall. Stacks of files and papers crowded in the corners, occupied the chairs, and choked the desk. Someone had gone through Greg's papers. They'd done it carefully. The place wasn't ransacked, but someone had looked at each of Greg's files and didn't return them to their proper place. Instead, choosing to stack them on the first horizontal surface available. These are Greg's private papers. For some reason, the idea of someone touching Greg's things, going over them, reading his thoughts after his death bothered me. I stepped through the doorway and felt a protective spell close behind me. Arcane symbols ignited with a paler orange glow, forming complex patterns on the gray carpet. Long, twisting lines connected the symbols, crisscrossing and winding about the room, their intersections marked by radiant red dots. Sorry, I didn't sleep well last night. Greg had sealed the room with his own blood, and more. He had keyed it to me, otherwise I wouldn't be able to see the spell. Now any magic I did in this room would stay in it, leaving no echo beyond the door. A spell of this complexity would take weeks to set up. Judging by the intensity of the glowing lines, it would absorb one hell of an echo. Why would he do that? I walked between the files to the bookshelf. It held an old edition of the Almanac of Mystic Creatures, an even older version of the Arcane Dictionary, a Bible, a beautiful edition of the Koran, bound in leather, and engraved with gold, several other religious volumes, and a thin copy of Spenser's Fairy Queen. I made my way to the metal cabinets. As expected, they were empty. The shelves are marked in Greg's own unique code, which I couldn't read. Didn't really matter. I picked up the closest stack and carefully slid the first file onto the metal frame. Oh. Telling you what, I could probably sleep for a few hours. 2 hours later, I finished with papers on the floor and the chairs and was ready to start on the stacks, covering the desk with a large manila envelope. stopped me. I lay on top of the central stack, so my name written with black marker and Greg's cursive was plainly visible. I lowered the stacks to the floor, pulled up a chair, and emptied the envelope onto the desk surface. 2 photographs and a letter. In the first photo, 2 couples stood side by side. I recognized my father, a hulking, red-haired man, enormous shoulders spread wide, one arm around a woman who had to be my mother. Some children retain memories of their deceased parents. Shadow of a voice, a hint of a scent, an image. I recalled nothing of her, as if she had never existed. My father kept no photographs of her. It must have been too painful for him, and I knew only what he had told me. She was pretty, he had said. She had long blonde hair. Stared at the woman in the photograph. She was short and petite. Her features matched her build, well-formed, delicate, but devoid of fragility. She stood assured with ease, natural poise, clothed in a kind of magical allure, and perfectly aware of her power. She was beautiful. Both he and Greg told me I resembled her, but no matter how hard I studied her image, I could see no resemblance. My features were bolder, my mouth was larger, and not pouting by any stretch of the imagination. I did manage to inherit her eye color, dark brown, but my eyes had an odd cut, almond shape, slightly elongated. My skin was a shade darker. If I overloaded an eyeliner and mascara, I could easily pass for a gypsy. There was more to it than that. My mother's face had feminine gentleness. Mine didn't, at least not when compared to hers. If we were to stand side by side in a room full of people, I wouldn't get a single glance, and if someone had stopped to chat me up, she could have stolen him with a single smile. Pretty. Yeah. Nice understatement, Dad. On the other hand, if the same people had to pick up one of us to kick a bad guy in the kneecap, I'd get the vote, no problem. Next to my mother and father, Greg stood by a lovely Asian woman, Anna, his first wife. Unlike my parents, those two stood a little apart, each maintaining a barely perceptible distance as if their individualities would strike a spark if they reached for one another. Greg's eyes were mournful. I put the photograph face down on the desk. The other photo was of me, about 9 or 10 years old, diving into a lake from the branches of a giant poplar. I didn't know he had her even when it was taken. I read the letter, a few sparse lines on the white piece of paper, a part of Spencer's poem. One day I wrote her name upon the strand, but came the waves and washed it away. Again I wrote it with a second hand, but came the tide and made my pains his prey. Below 4 words were written in Greg's blood. Amahi, Tervan, Sanahi, Oud. The words blazed with red fire. A powerful spasm gripped me. My lungs constricted, the room blurred, and though the dense fog, the beating of my heart sounded like the toll of a church bell, a tangle of forces swirled around me, catching in a twisted mess of slippery, elastic power currents. I reached out and gripped them, and they carried me forth, far into the amalgam of light and sound. The light permeated me and burst within my mind, sending a myriad of sparks through my skin. The blood in my veins luminescence like molten metal, lost in the whirlwind of light. My mouth opened, struggled to release a word, it wouldn't come, and I thought I would die, and then I said it, pouring my power into the weak sound. Isad. Mine. The world stopped spinning, and I found my place in it. 4 words towered before me. I had to say them. I held my power and said the words, willing them, forcing them to become mine. Amahi, Tervan, Sanahi, Oud. The flow of power ebbed. I was staring at the white piece of paper. The words were gone, and a small puddle of crimson spread across the sheet. I touched it and felt the prickling of magic. My blood. My nose was bleeding. Pulling a dressing from my pocket, where I always carried some, I pressed it against my nose and leaned back. I burned the bandages later. The watch on my wrist said 12:17 p.m. Somehow within those few instants I had lost almost an hour and a half. The 4 words of power, obey, kill, protect, and die, words so primal, so dangerous, so powerful, that they commanded the raw magic itself. Nobody knew how many of them there were. where they came from or why they held such enormous hold over magic. Even people who had never used magic recognized their meaning and were subject to their power, as if the words were a part of some ancient racial memory we all carried. It wasn't enough to merely know them. One had to own them. When it came to acquiring, you either conquered them or you died trying, which explained why so few among the magic workers could wield them. Once you made them yours, they belonged to you forever. They had to be wielded with great precision, and using them took a chunk of power that left the caster near exhaustion. Greg, my father, both warned me that the power words could be resisted, but so far I hadn't had a chance to use them against an opponent that did. They were the last resort when all else failed. Now I had 6 words, 4 given to me by Greg, 2 others mine and release. My father taught them to me long ago. I was 12 and I almost died making them mine. This time it had been too easy. Maybe the power of the blood grew with age. I wish Greg was alive so I could ask him. I glanced to the floor. The orange lines of Greg's ward had grown so dim I could barely see them. They had absorbed everything they could. The words clamored in my head, shifting and tossing, trying to find their place. Greg's last gift, more precious than anything he could have given me. Gradually I became aware of someone watching me. I looked up and saw a lean black man in the doorway. He had smiled at me when I passed by his office some 3 hours earlier. Are you alright? Yes. Tripped a residual ward. I mumbled, the rag still covering my nose. Happens. I'm okay. Yeah, you sure? Yeah. Okay, I'm an incompetent moron. Go away now. I brought you Greg's file. Minda moved into the room. Smart. I had tripped a trap set up by Greg. It could hit him as well. Sorry it's so late. One of our knights had it. I walked to him and took the file from his hands. Thanks. No problem. He regarded me for a moment and walked away. I rummaged through Greg's desk for a mirror. Every self-suspecting mage had a mirror close to hand. Too many spells required it. Greg's was a rectangle set in a plain wooden frame. I caught my image in it and almost dropped the rag. My hair glowed. It radiated weak burgundy luminescence, which shifted when I ran my hands through it, as if each individual strand of hair was coated with fluorescent paint. I shook my head, but the radiance didn't dim. Growling at it didn't help either, and I had not the faintest idea how to get rid of it. I hid in the farthest corner of the room, invisible from the door, and opened the file. If you can't make it go away, wait it out. Last time I assimilated words of power, I was exhausted. Now I felt exhilarated, high on magic. The energy filled me and I struggled to contain it. I wanted to jump and run, to do something. Instead I had to hide in a corner and concentrate on the file before me. The file contained a coroner's report, a summary of a police report, some hurried notes, and several photos of a crime scene. A wide shot showed 2 bodies sprawled on the asphalt, one corpse stark, pale and nude, and the other a bloody mess of mauled, shredded tissue. Found the close-up of the mauled corpse first. The cadaver lay spread-eagled upon a blood-soaked cloth. Something had ripped into its chest, snapped the breastbone, and tore it away with unbelievable force. The chest cavity lay exposed, the wet, glistening mass of the smashed heart dark against the spongy remains of the lungs and the yellow white of the broken ribs. Left arm, wrenched clear of its socket, hung by a thin, bloody filament. Dang. The next shot showed the close-up of the head, sad eyes I knew so well, looked up into the camera straight at me. Oh God, I read the caption. This battered piece of human meat was all that remained of Greg. A lump rose in my throat. I struggled with it for a few agonizing seconds and forced it down. This was not Greg. It was only his corpse. Next photo provided me with a close look at the other body. The one appeared untouched, all except for the head, which was missing. A broken shard of the spine jutting from the neck stump, framed by limp shreds of torn tissue. No other evidence of the head ever being there remained. There was hardly any blood. There should have been pints of it. The body lay at an angle, and both carotid and jugular were cleanly severed. So where did all the blood go? Found 4 more shots of the corpse and arranged them next to each other on the floor. A smooth marble white as if the body had no fat at all, only lean muscle. Not a single hair marred the epidermis. The scrotum looked shriveled and unusually small in size. I needed a close-up of the hand, but there was not one. Somebody had dropped the ball. It did not matter too much, since all the other telltale signs were there. Even without the nails, the conclusion was plain. I was looking at a dead vampire. Vampires are dead by definition, but this one had ceased its undead existence. Not even Gastek, with all of his necromantic powers, could fix a vampire without a head. The $64,000 question was, who did this vampire belong to? Most people branded their vampires. If this one was branded, it didn't show in any of the shots of the moron photographer had taken. Whew. Alright. We're gonna stop there, because I have so much to do. I know! I wanted to learn more about that vampire and all the crime scene and everything. And poor Greg. I wonder how it all went down. Oh yeah, I can definitely take a nap, but I shouldn't. I really shouldn't. I need to work. Wouldn't a nap just be so beautiful? How about you nap for the both of us? That'd be nice. Yeah? I swear I'm falling asleep. Well, like I said, I have lots to do. So off I go. I don't care. You can chill if you want. It's fine with me. Thanks for coming, by the way.